right.
You picture here.
Okay, great. All right, that's one thing. I have to realize I got one more thing I got to pull up. Um, well, nothing moves as fast as you needed to. Okay. All right, I got it. Okay, I got everything together. All right. Jesus be offense. All right. Good evening and welcome to the Metaphysical Bible Hangout. I'm Reverend SherriDeniseJames, and I am just honored to be here. I'm the creator of the Bible Hangout. And what this is a weekly Bible study. It's free. We meet via Zoom, and then it rebroadcasts on Facebook and then also on YouTube. But what this does is that it really provides a weekly touch point for you to just connect to your spirit. But what it means that you become what you study. And what it means is that when you engage in this study, that you are essentially mining your consciousness for gems. There are diamonds in your midst, and I mean that literatively and metaphorically. And so as you begin this type of study, what you end up doing is cracking open your soul to release the good that is in there. So I'm so grateful that you chose to be here with us this evening. And I realized that I should say this because I was watching back the broadcast, and I'm so used to just working in this setting, but this will be on YouTube. And so, hey, if you are catching this on YouTube and you would like to be a part of this community and join us live one Thursday evening, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you always get a notification. And you can send me a private message on Facebook and have me add you to the mailing list. I send mainly about like one email a week that's just a reminder about Thursday night. And what we're doing with this particular study, with where we're going now, and especially during this COVID-19 experience, is that we are focused on health and prosperity. Health and prosperity. So every story that we are looking at, we're studying from that perspective. And then tonight we're going to do a three-part with Genesis chapter 30 verses 25 to 43. So we're going to take that particular passage in three parts. All right, let's take a moment to just relax and just recognize that God is the only presence and the only power there is. That right where you are, that power and presence is concentrated through your attention. That never for one moment have you been left alone, but you have been divinely provided for. You've been gifted by the only gift that matters, and that is the gift from God. That you've been chosen for this moment to bring something forth for this generation. And my fervent prayer is that something you hear in this setting helps you to release those gifts, those talents, those capacities into expression. I ask that all that we do here be used for the glory of God in you. In the name and nature of the one that we call Christ, I affirm that this is so, and so it is. And amen. All right, I want to start by opening the floor for presentations. And you have 2 minutes. I have my timer here. It's a 2-minute timer. And so if there's anybody that wants to go first, let me know. And this is from last week. So each week there's going to be soul work, and we're going to open the floor with presentations from the soul work. So last week the focus was on what type of spark for good do you want to be, or something like that. But we were looking at the woman with the issue of blood, and we were talking about how Jesus so charged up his consciousness that even his clothes were charged with the energy of God in him, and that even his articles of clothing were good for healing. And we talked about being that type of spark, that something that you do is so infused with your consciousness that when it touches another person, that it heals them, that it has a healing force for them. And so the floor is open. Does anybody want to go first? And I do have someone who can't join us live, but sent in her assignment. her soul work. I know y'all are not shy. I know I got some teachers in the audience. I know I got some speakers. Listen, I already know who God attracts to me. God sends me entrepreneurs. God sends me type A people. God, just say it. Like, so I already know. So if you quiet just because you're fronting. Okay. But not because that's your actual character. So who would like to go first?
Not that I'm going first.
Oh. who said that, Nisi?
Yes, Reverend.
Okay, there you go. That's exactly. Hold on, let me get the cancel spotlight on my video and spotlight your video. Go ahead.
Good Lord. Well, it's like I didn't do the assignment really. Not understanding it fully, because but I realized, like, in some of the things that I do, there is a spark in it. So okay, let me be quick about it. So like when I prepare food and to bring to people, they really appreciate it, and it kind of lifts them up. And then I find sometimes, like, if I really pay attention, certain people I call at different times, because I have some friends I don't talk to all the time, but it's always a good time whenever we get together. And so those friends that are long distance, when I contact them, it's always the right time, and it's always the right conversation that we're having, uplifting each other. So, and that happened with 2 people this week, and so I'm guessing that's the spark.
Yes,
I don't know.
That's it. That's it. It don't you have to think of it like on the scale of Jesus, right? It can be anywhere in between, or it can go beyond. So just know that. Okay, perfect. Who'd like to go next? I see Zandra smiling.
I will go.
Sandra.
That's all right. I wasn't sure I had a spark until I talked with Constance in the earlier class. I was teaching a class this week on Zoom.
See? You are representative of who God sends me. Go ahead.
And I had a lot of trepidation in regards to teaching this class because I wanted to put them in breakout rooms. I wanted to go between the PowerPoint and all that. So I had prepped. So I was very nervous, but it went through well, and they were able to get out into breakout rooms. But I was talking about being a better you, and in reference to self-leadership and a behavioral style inventory that they took as well. But so we got through it. And I was so glad that we got through it. I didn't really think about the spark until afterwards, because I received an email from one of the participants saying that she really enjoyed the session and was very thankful that she attended. So that's what I didn't think of it to be a spark, but it was definitely a spark in her world.
Yes. I love that. Yes. All right. Who would like to go next? I know Constance is over there being a spark. So let's just, you need to just bring it. In fact, she's who gave us the soul work for this week. So it was a comment that she made that became the spark. And you're muted, so you gotta mute yourself.
Okay, so I had to sit and think as well. How am I a spark? And I put down, consciously choose how I'm going to be a spark for someone else. And I went into prayer and I said, well, speak to me. How am I going to be a spark for someone else? And I'm kind of creative. So the answer came through my cards that I create and send out. Spirit will give me the exact verse to say to somebody. I don't know them. I always ask the person, will give me a little information about them. Spirit will download the exact thing that person might need to hear. And don't ask me later what I wrote. I don't know. But I get testimonies from people that they love the cards, and because they are unique. And then through my crochet, I like to crochet. So now I'm crocheting face masks. So I'll be a spark on, adding to the world of keeping yourself safe. Through my transcription service, I have not started that up. But what it is that I want to transcribe your lesson sermons so that you can put them in a book and share them with other people. So I have yet to put that out there to the ministers because I want it to be my little niche.
Yeah.
For ministers within UFBL, you send me your lesson sermons, I will transcribe them, put them in a booklet for you, and then you can move from there. And then a spark through my teaching. So I'm just here to be a spark for God and just what glow, 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 glow. So in any way that the spirit will use itself through me. So that's how I know. And thank you for letting me share.
Awesome, girl. You over there, you got a little forest fire going.
I know my company is GRG. God's ideas are good ideas. So it's GRG Unlimited.
Yes, yes, yes.
GIRGI.
That's good. Reach out to me about that transcription. That's hot. That's hot and helpful. So, anybody else? Who else would like to go? I have one. Well, I'll save mine and I'll read you the one from that came to me via email. As I got it this morning, it said, "Good morning, Rev Sherri. Thank you for all you do for the universe. I am working on getting my spark back. I can honestly admit my spark has been non-existent. I lost a dear friend to coronavirus and it shook me to my core. To be totally honest, I lost my spark at least a year ago. These assignments you've given us, I can honestly say that I have been working with them all. Last week, when you said, how am I going to bring my spark back? I took it literally, Rev. I have to keep things simple. I spelled out spark. I had to let somebody in and lost the page. I have been working with it every day, sometimes hour by hour. Here goes. S equals self-love, not just physically, but mentally as well. I make myself take a walk. It's painful. Prayer and meditation must be consistent. P, praising equals praising, spirit, and staying grateful. A equals absolute God is my source. Unconditional, unlimited, unrestricted, and freedom from all thoughts of limitations. R equals repetition, confirm my affirmations, believing I deserve nothing but the best. K equals kindness. I can beat up on she may named herself very well. I am tired of doing that. Being kind to myself is a must. I mostly catch the recorded classes on YouTube. So if you have time, let me know what you think. So I thought it was absolutely fabulous. And then I realized that I have a way that, I'm interested in being a spark. I'm interested in being a game changer on the planet. Like I ask for that. I want it big, bring it through me big. But I wrote the daily inspiration, and I've now stored it, so I can't put my hands on it immediately, but I wrote the daily inspiration for March, and I got a phone call. And I don't know if I shared this with you guys or not. I think I did, but maybe I didn't. I got a phone call from a minister in Chicago who said, I just wanted to let you know that we have a member who is incarcerated. And he had called us to ask for some things to read. And one of the things that we sent him was the daily inspiration. And he wrote us back and named you by name to say that what you wrote helped him, reminded him of things that he had heard when he was growing up, and that it was a healing for him to read that. And so it was letting me know that my voice as a writer is a spark in addition to as a speaker. And so that is how I'm interested in being a spark. Anybody else before we jump into the lesson?
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So with this particular lesson, I'm really excited. So this is a 3-part lesson, and mainly because the passage of scripture is so big. But as I was going through it, I realized that I wanted to give you guys a little bit more methodology, because I want to make sure that you understand like the method, and then you can improvise off the method. So the passage of scripture is Genesis chapter 30, verses 25 to 43. So the one that I chose here is the New King James Version. I toggle between either that one or the ASV, the American Standard Version, because that's the one that Fillmore used. So his definitions apply there. The words that show up in the New Revised Standard Version, even though that's my preferred Bible translation, are not always consistent with the words that are as they were when he was doing the interpretations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the passage. So the step one is to select it, to read it, and then study the text. And so it's verse 25, and it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service, which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Then he said, name me your wages and I will give it. So Jacob said to him, you know how I have served you and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming, and now when shall I provide for my own house? So he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. And these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come when the subject of my wages comes before you. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen if it is with me. And Laban said, oh, that it were according to your word. So he, and this is referring to Laban, so he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white stripes in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face toward the street, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous and had large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. I have a comment. Make sure I catch that. Okay, got it. All right. So that's the first step, is just to pick it. Now, a passage of this length is the type of thing that you could spend maybe a week working on, meaning that if you took 30 minutes each day and you made this your morning routine, and for 30 minutes you just worked on this passage, it's so much information, it's so much to digest. You need time for your brain to form new neurons. So, when you're learning that as you sleep, the new information that you have taken in, like new neural pathways are being formed. This is too much information to take in at one time. So what this something of this size, everything we've done up till now really hasn't been of this length. It's been shorter passages that you can probably knock out in one setting. But something like this, where there's so many moving parts and so much information, it's the kind of thing that you want to come at over multiple days, which is why I turned this into a 3-part thing, because I want to show you what that looks like, how you can begin to build on it. And so there are things that we're going to get from the study tonight that, or let me back up. There are things that we're going to get a week from now or 2 weeks from now that will be because of what we did tonight. But if we had not done tonight, it would not have enabled the next 2 weeks. Is anybody unclear about what is happening in the story? So one of the things that wasn't clear to me, because I knew this story from having studied it, but when I reread it, I was like, I got turned around with the pronouns. And that was why I made clear that it was Laban that went in and removed the ones that he had promised to Jacob. Because when I was reading it, sometimes with the pronouns, that kind of gets lost, with it, in the story. So that's reading the text. And the next one is just to study the text. So the first thing I did was I read it in the ASV version. I think that's the NKJV that I put up. And then I read it and what I would do is this is how I take my notes. So I wrote down, okay, I read it in the ASV and I read it. And, if I were putting any notes, I would have put, a little confused about who was doing what. And because all I'm doing right now is I'm just capturing my observations. Then I read it in, I think I've shared this with you guys. This is one of my favorite Bibles because of the study note. Then I read it in the Jewish Study Bible. Stop the share, make sure you guys can see that. This is the Jewish Study Bible, the Tanakh translation. This is an excellent Bible. It is only what we in Christianity would call the Old Testament, but it's an excellent, excellent study Bible. Really, really just good. Just is worth having in your Bible library. And I haven't seen this translation online. Did I share the wrong thing? Hold on. Okay. So when I read the Jewish Study Bible, what I was doing was that whatever came up in my spirit, I would just write it down. So this is how how you would do the study. So once I read the same story in the Jewish Study Bible and read the study notes, this is what I wrote. I said, I was familiar with the story from a sermon Reverend Mary gave years ago, Reverend Mary Tumpkin, who was the senior minister for Universal Truth Center in Miami, Florida. However, I had forgotten the details. Reading this account helped me grasp the story beats that I missed when I read the ASV. I learned this from the Jewish Study Bible. I learned that there is a folkloristic belief that what animals see while mating determines the appearance of their young. So that helped give me some clarity around what gives with the speckled, the spotted, the reeds, the rods, that in this culture, there was a belief that whatever animals are looking at, what's up, baby? Don't do that. What's up? You see me too? You see me?
There pliers in the toilet.
Okay. Don't.
Seriously.
Okay. We may be having a little emergency over here. Don't flush the toilet, okay?
I'm not.
Okay. All right.
Ellen took them out.
Oh, praise God. All right. So, you can fly high, and then there's something that show you got some clay feet. All right. Anyway, so reading this account, what it helped me do was to grasp the story beats, but also just to capture that there is this belief that animals, whatever they're looking at when they mate, determines how their young come out. So thus, when the goats, which are ordinarily dark in the Near East, see the white of the shoots, which is in verse 37, which is the same word for white, is the same as Laban's name, they conceive kids, the baby goat, they conceive kids with patches of white. So this was the folkloristic belief of how a brown goat could have a spotted calf. Does that make sense? This was the belief of these ancient peoples was that the mating goats must be looking at something that is influencing then how the offspring come out. Similarly, Jacob positioned the sheep, which are normally white, in view of the streaked or wholly dark colored animals, and that's in verse 40, so that they would bear lambs with dark patches. And then something else that that it said, the refugee is becoming a patriarch, and I was curious as to what that meant. I didn't fully understand what that meant, but I wrote it down. And so again, all I'm doing right now is that this is part of me studying the text, and I'm taking down notes of what I'm noticing. So first I read the text in the ASV, and I wrote my feelings about it or things that I learned. Then I read the Jewish Study Bible. Then the next thing I did is I read the NKJV. So I went to the New King James Version. So with the New King James Version, there wasn't anything, I didn't come away with any notes. It didn't necessarily give me any new insights, but I just marked down that I read it. And then I read the New Living Translation. And again, I'm just choosing, there's not a necessary, if I had time, I would try to read as many different translations as possible, but I had, a couple of hours to allocate to this week. So I chose those particular versions. So the New Living Translation, what I walked away with is that the story never reveals whether Jacob knows that Laban has tricked him. And I had noticed this before when I read the ASV and the NKJV, but for some reason, when I read the New Living Translation, it made me think, was Jacob just shrewd, or did he know that Laban was tricking him? What was he moving on when he made the decision that he made to basically go through this, elaborate ritual to get the animals to produce the way that he wanted them to? The story never reveals that. Presumably he knows Laban is a trickster because Laban tricked him into marrying Leah when his desire was for Rachel. Then I went to another one of my favorites, the Anchor Bible Commentary. And I got a lot of good information there. So the Anchor Bible Commentary, I think I've shared with you, this is one of the Bible tools that I use to do interpretation. And so when I am reading the text, what I like about the Anchor Bible Commentary is that it has as little as possible. I mean, you can't avoid consciousness, but as little as possible commentary, and it's just trying to give you the facts of the information rather than trying to give you dogma. So I got a lot of information out of the Anchor Bible Commentary. And at this point, all I'm doing, this is just a collection process. So from the Anchor Bible Commentary, what I walked away with is what I wrote with this. I said, I am getting that Jacob knows his value. When Laban asks Jacob to name any wages you want from me and I will pay, Jacob replies, you know what my service has meant to you and how your livestock has fared in my care. For the little that you had before I came has grown into very much, since Yahweh has blessed you for my actions. It is high time that I do something for my own household as well. So one of the things that the Anchor Bible Commentary helped me to discern is to get that Jacob was not coming to Laban humbly. And I think in as far back as I can with the telling of this story, Jacob was being painted as being this humble servant, righteous, upright, he did some stuff in his youth, but and so when I read the Anchor Bible Commentary that doesn't try to give dogma and does its very best to give you just the facts, I really got that Jacob is shrewd. Like, he is a shrewd businessman. Maybe he didn't know Laban would do what he would do, and he planned all along to position himself to claim the best. But the events described in the rest of the account, that was other thing. So that's the other part that I noticed was like how this all happened. I was trying to get like a sense of a timeline, because sometimes when you're reading these stories, we collapse them as if they happen within a certain number of days. And one of the things that stood out was that the events described in the rest of the account, meaning the speckled and the spotted, all of that, required more than one season. So this progress was obviously a matter of years, not just days. And then I wrote, Laban is delighted with the terms and promptly proceeds to violate the spirit of the bargain by removing to a safe distance all the grown animals that would be likely to produce the specific sports. Nevertheless, Jacob finds a way to outwit his father-in-law through prenatal conditioning of the flock by means of visual aids in conformance with universal folk beliefs. So here, once again, I get some data. But this I thought was powerful. So this I wrote, it's too much, it was too much to type, but it was page 238 and 239. Dr. Will Coleman, who is one of my teachers, always talks about the Bible being an African text, and Mesopotamia is a African setting. And so that jumped out at me, but this is what it says. It says the bargain between Jacob and Laban is limited to new births among Laban's droves, and specifically to lambs and kids with rare markings and pigmentation. Mesopotamian economy always paid very close attention to distinctive breeds of sheep and goats, as is amply attested in countless business and lexical documents. So again, this is one of those things like if you're not a student of history, if you're not reading this information, you're reading this, it's like, what gives with the speckled, the spotted? Who gives a crap who's speckled and who's spotted and the brown, and what does this mean? But what's happening here is that there's a demand that Jacob is placing. And it says, more significant still is the country's preoccupation with biological kids, or, sport, they call them sports, but that just means like a baby goat. Among those species, to judge from the Omen text. Many such abnormalities, both real and theoretical, are minutely described. So there is this preoccupation with what does the baby look like from the animal that it's born from. Of particular relevance to the present context is the following entry. If a sheep has the appearance of a goat, its wool being black, the position of the country will be secure. In other words, not only does the Omen make note of this particular coloring, but it regards its occurrence as a favorable sign. So for Jacob to go to Laban and ask for the brown sheep, this wasn't a small demand that he was making. And at least the way that I had been taught, and I don't know how you were taught, but how I had been taught was that it was like he was striking a deal that anybody would agree to, because he was asking for the least, and Laban was going to trick him out of the least. But if you go and you pull the commentary, what you find is that this is there's the context of this is a little bit more lion meets lion rather than lion meets lamb. And Jacob is coming to Laban and he's saying, look, I've worked for you, I've prospered you, now it's time for me to do for myself. And we need to part ways. And so Laban is saying, let's just tell me what it is that you want. And Jacob's response is, I'm going back to his response, hold on, because I like it here in this one. He says, you know what my service has meant to you. Like he doesn't come back with like head in hand. He's like, you know what my service has meant to you, how your livestock has fared in my care. For the little you had before I came has grown into very much. Basically, I know my worth. I know what I'm worth. And so you're gonna have to pay up. And so Laban, thinking that he's got the upper hand, because as the master of the house and Jacob being in his living on his property, he owns Jacob and everything Jacob owns. And so he's like, what should I pay you? But it's almost like the big mogul looking down at the person that they think that they've got the upper hand on. And Jacob comes back he's like, you don't need to give me anything outright. If you do this one thing for me, I will again pasture and tend your flock. He's like, listen, if you give me what I want, I'll make sure you prosper. That's what he's saying. If you give me what I want, I will make sure that you get what you want. Here's what I need. I need go through your entire flock and take every animal that's dark colored. And remember what I said, that was the from the Mesopotamian records. They're not in the Bible. These are like contemporary records and how that culture viewed animals that were born brown like this. And it says that if a sheep has the appearance of a goat, its wool being black, the position of the country will be secure. So he's asking for the best of what Laban has. In other words, I have prospered you, you need to pay me in stock. I gave you this idea, you about to turn it into a hit movie. I don't want a check, I need royalties. You getting this? And I don't know, I hadn't been taught the story this way. Maybe you guys had, but I know there was no teacher that taught me the story this way. So anyway, so this is what we're pulling from the story, and this is what's happening. Is like, this is just the information gathering stage. That's all I'm doing right now, is I'm reading across sources, trying to get a better understanding of what is happening on the page. So then I also read Mysteries of Genesis, which is by Charles Fillmore. And out of the chapter that covers this, the two things that I walked away with, because they did not appear in other sources when I was looking up Rachel and Leah for Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, was that Rachel symbolizes the spiritual soul and Leah symbolizes the human soul. And I knew that that would be one of the key phrases words that I would look up. Any questions on this first step and what has happened? Any aha moments, anything that was fresh or new to you that caught you off guard, that was new, that you hadn't heard before, or aha moments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why is the Bible okay with all the trickery that happens?
Thank you. That's a really good question. So no one has necessarily a good answer. Let me say that. Nobody has a good answer. But what they notice in the text is that the Hebrew people were not trying to paint their patriarchs in a good light. They put them out there in all of their flaws. You don't really get the great cleanup until you get to Chronicles, where they begin to retell the story of David. And it's cleaned up. All the shenanigans he went through to get Bathsheba, all of that just gets whitewashed. But in general, in Genesis, they paint them, there's not this revisionist history. And it's one of the things that puzzles scholars about the writing. And it's also what helps them do some of their research and to know whether or not something is authentic or not, because it's like, they weren't trying to clean it up. They're trying to tell the whole story. Here he is with all of his warts.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Cool. All right. So that's step one. And that, honestly, that could be your morning. That could be one morning where you're just doing the research, where you're just reading sources. Then the next thing that you want to do is you want to identify the key words and phrases. And so I've been telling you that one of the cheats is to go to Truth Unity, and it still is, that hasn't changed, to go to Truth Unity, and it will give you words that you can look up. So a lot of these are from Truth Unity, but there are also some like this one, Send Me Away. That's not Truth Unity. I'm gonna change that one. Speckled and spotted sheep. So the brown ones. So these are not from Truth Unity, but where they come from is that they come from the research that I did that told me it was something worth paying attention to. So for example, so the yellow represents what you're going to find in truth unity. The green, though, is based on what came up when I researched and studied the passage. And so one of the things that I studied this is from the Jewish Study Bible, is that the phrase "send me away," I feel like I put that down here somewhere. Okay, all right. Well, anyway, let's keep going. I'll get to that. So these are all the ones that as I went through the research. So sometimes I'm listening, something just stands out, like when we did a couple of weeks ago, that word quarrel stood out and I looked it up in the concordance. And then other times it is something like this, where I have read something and realized that, oh, wait a minute, there's something else going on with all of these different animals and all this stuff. Okay, so as I'm going through, I'm highlighting what it is that I want to look up. That step 2 is just to identify, like, what am I going to crack apart? What words in this passage am I going to crack open? And then I begin to, step 3 is to develop the definitions. And so one of the things that I said with Rachel represents the spiritual soul. I think it's one of the thought I put that in there, the spiritual soul, but it also represents fruitful on the higher spiritual plane of ideas. She had given birth to Joseph. She gave birth to imagination. And Jacob represents an idea of the I am identity. Laban is the attention focused on exalted states of mind and united with spiritual intelligence and non-resistance. Send me away. So that's one of the green ones. Send me away. This verb translated give me leave in one of the translations. It was actually a standard term for what they call manumission, but basically it's what a captor would say, a captive would say to the captor. And so we see it often with the exit from Egypt, the exodus from Egypt. And so what it's telling us is that there is this subservient relationship between Jacob and Laban. So he comes there, he marries his daughter, but something's going on in the relationship where Jacob can't just get up and walk out the door. Place represents a spiritual current in the cosmic ether in which we live. Country is a state of consciousness. Give me my wives. Again, that's Rachel and Leah. The spiritual, Leah is the human soul. Rachel is the spiritual soul. Children represent ideas. And so this blue here is a direct, I just picked it up right out of the Jewish Study Bible. The underlying assumption seems to be that Jacob had accepted the status of an indentured servant. Thus, he could not leave without his master's permission, and his wives and children would belong to the master. We know from Genesis chapter 31-38 that Jacob's total length of service with Laban added up to 20 years, which leaves 6 years over and above the 14 stipulated as payment for Jacob's 2 wives. And 6 years would be about the minimum to permit the kind of natural increase that the concluding verse seeks to stress, meaning that he prospered with the way that he mated the animals. And Laban, attention focus on exalted states, said to Jacob, please stay if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord, I am Jehovah, has blessed me or prospered me for your sake. Then he said, name me your wages and I will get it. And once I had gotten this insight that, wait a minute, Jacob is driving a hard bargain, it made me think about the poem from Jessie Bell Rittenhouse. And you probably have heard this poem before. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is just an employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have paid. So I want to stop right there with the interpretation, because like I said, this is a lot of information, right? But what I want to you to work on for this week, and then we can talk about it, is what have you bargained for life for? What have you bargained for life for? Because what I walked away with this passage and dealing with Jacob is that you need to know your worth. And I thought that it was significant. So he had been having children. He had been prospering. He had worked for Laban for 7 years, and because he wanted to marry Rachel. Laban tricks him and puts Leah in the tent, and he finds out, wait a minute, I'm married to the wrong woman. And then he works for him another 7 years because I want my true beloved. And so whatever I got to go through, let's do it. And he does that. And then it isn't, so there's a and you guys know this part of the circus. A lot of us heard these stories as we were growing up in church. There's a part of the story where Rachel is barren, Leah is having children, Rachel is jealous. She gives her handmaid to Jacob. He sleeps with the handmaid. They have children, which are considered Rachel's children, even though she didn't physically give birth to them, but there's still that feeling. She feels some kind of way about it. Then Leah, not to be outdone, is like, I'm gonna give my handmaid to Jacob, and Jacob gonna sleep with her. So not only do I have my biological child, I got all the kids that my handmaiden had. So this is a little orgy going on there. But finally, Rachel gives birth to Joseph. And Joseph metaphysically represents imagination. And so what we see happening is this birth into consciousness of imagination, because it's with the birth of Joseph that that Jacob gets a new idea. Like, he may not have been happy where he was, and I would imagine he wasn't, because he was tricked, right? And he gets this woman that he doesn't love her, but I done made this deal, and so I got to keep this deal, right? So he's probably not happy in that situation, but it's not until he is able to imagine something different that he's able to demand something different. And sometimes when we hit a brick wall, it's like life has nailed us, like we have just been nailed against the wall, and there is there's just not anything that we can do about it. That life has nailed us. It is we've reached a point where we can no longer run from who we are. We have we can't manipulate the situation to make ourselves come out looking good. Like, perhaps, you tell me, I don't know if this has been true for you, but I know that I have been in situations where I have worked for companies and I have felt proud to work for those companies, but because I could see that I was prospering the owner, but not myself, I had reached the point where it was no longer okay to get my ego all puffed up about making somebody else's retirement look better. I don't know if you've been there, but I've been there. And so this is what's happening for Jacob, is that with the birth of Joseph, metaphysically what's happening is that imagination has been awakened, and it's like, wait. I have done all this for you. I can do this for myself. Quintina says, I am there now. Yes. I read this passage. This is from Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. She says, it's as if you just looked at yourself in the mirror and you saw a gorilla. The mirror's there, it's showing you, and what you see looks bad. You try to angle the mirror so that you will look a little better, but no matter what you do, you still look like a gorilla. That's being nailed by life, that place where you have no choice except to embrace what's happening or to push it away. And that is what has happened to Jacob, is that he has been nailed to the wall by life. And if you are on the spiritual path, you will find yourself at a point where you have been nailed to the wall by life, where I am left without an option. I must take this next step. I can no longer make an excuse for why I have not produced the fruit that is mine to produce. I can no longer allow myself to go just as I have gone. And, you know, sometimes it comes in a way that it angers us. But the thing is that I'm never angry about what I think I'm angry at. And I'm never sad about what I think I'm sad about. That really what's happening is that the soul is calling for an expansion, that imagination has awakened, right? That's the birth of Joseph. Imagination has come to life, and I am no longer comfortable settling for peanuts. It's no longer acceptable for me to prosper someone else, that it is now time for me to prosper. And the thing is that the fruit, this type of selfishness, right? Because there's going to have to be a period where you are selfish, is actually the most selfless thing that you can do. The fruit that God has placed inside of you, the seeds that God has placed inside of you, that when they are planted and germinated, they will produce fruit that not only feeds you, but feeds generations. And I don't just mean your family, but I mean families that you are connected to and names you don't even know. But it requires you to imagine something greater. And Jacob had finally reached the place where he could imagine something greater, where he could see beyond where he was. And I believe that that's the call for us, is to really do a deep excavation on what have we settled for? What have we bargained with life for? What have we put up with because for whatever reason? Well, you know, I didn't go to school, so I didn't get to. It don't really matter the reason or the excuse. It only has to make sense to you. It only has to be true for you, but it don't have to be true in any other. Reverend Mary should say, insanity is when your excuses stop making sense to you. That's when you really lose it. And so maybe if you are struggling with, okay, well, where is that place for me, is to realize, one, that disappointment or embarrassment, you think about the things that disappoint you or embarrass you, or just places where you don't feel good. Maybe there's shame, resentment, anger, fear. Because the thing is that these feelings are that we feel consciously, they're really messengers. Maybe it presses out in you as anxiety. And the thing is that when you're willing to look at it, meaning you don't indulge it and you don't push it away, but you stay in this kind of middle space of just observing the disappointment, or observing the sadness, or observing the shame, right? You don't get involved in it, but you also don't try to deny it. You're just right there in the middle. that if you can stay there, it will teach you what it's about. Because you're never ashamed about the thing you think is shaming you. And you are never sad about the thing you think is making you feel sad. And you're never mad about the thing you think is making you feel mad. And so if you could just sit in the discomfort and just be there, it will reveal its gifts to you. There's a song that Faith Rivera sings called Gifts the Storm May Bring. Does anybody know that song? Gifts the Storm May Bring. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous song. Look it up, Faith Rivera. It's absolutely beautiful. And what she says is that I embrace the gifts the storm may bring. And I know that these clouds are lifting me. If you could get that, even Jacob being at this place of shrewdness, he's at a place of also feeling stuck. And he must feel stuck because he's got to go to Laban to ask to be released. So something has transpired here in the story, and we'd have to dig more into like the cultural things. The clues are probably there in the story, but we'd have to dig more into it to really get what was happening, because clearly they were in a relationship where they were not peers, but somebody was here and somebody was here. And this was Laban and this was Jacob. But what had happened with Jacob, though, is that imagination had awakened and he knew what he was worth. And so even though they were in an unbalanced relationship, Jacob was willing to ask for what he was worth. Questions?
That was super powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Metaphysically, what is Jacob?
What resonated with you? I'll come back to what resonated with you?
Well, in the music world, that's my kind of only world. Being with who I was with, he was the big giant. And I must have given 50% of maybe 3 albums. And one day I just said, I don't want to do that no more. And he caught such an attitude that we almost lost friendship. And I didn't want to lose friendship. I was just like, if he said, shine my shoes, I probably would have shined his shoes. And I hate to have to say that, but it's all right to say that but when I said, no, that's the end, and I didn't get on the albums no more, yes. Somebody came to me. This is funny. They was looking for me and they asked me, they said, we already recorded the song. What do you think your worth is? Guess what I said? What? 100%. And guess what they said?
What?
Okay.
Wow.
And the song became a #1 smash hit song. Because my consciousness had changed and I no longer needed to be swinging on somebody's jock, as we say here. It was like, that was cool. I was finished with that. He even said, what this is going to do for your career, you shouldn't want nothing.
Yes.
And you made me go there. I didn't want to go there. I didn't feel like
but that's real talk, because I think that, I worked in entertainment, and I know that experience where they call it paying your dues, but there's not like a dues ledger, right? Nobody's sitting there with a little dues ledger, like, okay. And when the dues are done is when Joseph is born. The dues are done when Joseph is born. And until then, I'm just happy to prosper you. I'm just happy to contribute to what you got. And it's like, no. God put something in me. God put something in me that I have to honor. Constance. You're muted. You're muted. Uh-oh. There you are.
Jacob represents what metaphysically?
Oh, Lord. I had it. Hold on. Hold on, hold on. I
Because
didn't
one
have that
thought
one
birthed
fitted in memory.
another.
Say it one more time.
Because one thought birthed another.
So what it said in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is that he is an idea of the I am identity. So because he has the 12 sons. So he is a type of Christ. But he's in the it's like in the early development stage. But he's on the chart progressing toward Jesus.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Anything else? And so let me clarify the soul work, and I need to write it down so I can remember for myself. Hold on. It is, what have you bargained for life for? And this is just an honest assessment, right? Because that part of what keeps us from being able to move forward is an unwillingness to look at this moment as we are. Right? That oftentimes what disables us from our ability to move forward is that I'm not willing to tell the truth about what things look like right now. And so sometimes people are more interested in looking rich than actually being rich. Right? So they want to look the part than to actually say, you know what? I don't have two nickels to rub together, and I really need to understand how money works. Right? And so it's in the truth telling where we're seeing things as they are, not worse than they are and not better than they are, but as they are, that we are able to really take a quantum leap forward. But until we're able to do that, then we're constantly in this space of, well, we're on the treadmill. We're on the treadmill, and we simply just don't get off until we're willing to look at ourselves. And so generally what happens, what makes us look at ourselves is that we hit a moment, we hit a place in life where life nails us and we can no longer run. And so we do one or two things, right? Because it's life has pushed us in a corner and we're in fight, flight, or freeze. And if we don't address it, then we generally go into some type of numbing activity. And so we drink it away, smoke it away, sniff it away, sex it away, but we do, because I don't want to feel inadequate. I don't want to feel those feelings of not being enough. I don't want to sit in that. And the truth is that if we could not run from that, we could get to that place where Jacob is, where, you look at your flaws and you say, but I prospered you. So something must be going right with me. I made you money. So I clearly I got something. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
I just got confused just now. You gave two definitions for Joseph.
No, Joseph is imagination.
Okay, so it's imagination. What's the one that you just said before about
Jacob?
Higher.
Yeah, Jacob. That was Jacob. Mm-hmm. And so the I am identity is giving birth to imagination. Imagination has come forth in consciousness.
Understood.
Mm-hmm. And what you've been doing is no longer good enough. In a practical way, I had this car that I loved. And it was on its last leg. It was, I said, I'll drive it till the wheels fall off. That almost happened. And, and, I had not made a decision. I was married to the idea of being in a luxury car. I was married to the idea of being in a luxury car. And And so some of my identity had been wrapped up inside of that. But imagination awakened, and all of a sudden the thing that seems so hard to like make happen came together like in an instant. And and in the moment that I made the decision, I didn't have any more resources to go make the car happen, to go turn things around. But I had decided that it was no longer okay for me to be in a car that looked good on the outside, but was falling apart on the inside. And when I made that decision, it was like a domino, like dominoes falling. But until that point, it felt like heavy lifting. Every thought about I couldn't bring myself to go to a car lot because it was like, how am I going to afford a car? But once imagination awakened, there was this commitment to, well, we're going to figure it out.
Man, so what are some practical ways to awaken imagination?
Reading. The reason I say that, reading and listening to other people's stories. Because what happens when you study people who have gone where you want to go is that it collapses the distance between you and them. So one of my favorite stories is a story of Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx. And I know, guys, y'all don't know nothing about this. Okay. But Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx, had $5,000. She was selling fax machines door to door. And she being kicked out of office, did this for 7 years. But her dad, when she was a teenager, would give her one of Wayne Dyer's tape programs. And she listened to it over and over and over again, and said enough that she had memorized it. And so she was asking the universe for an idea. And she'd had a particularly bad sale where she'd been kicked out of an office, and, just a really bad sale. And so she said, universe, give me an idea. And if you give me an idea, I promise you I won't squander it. 2 years later, she's getting ready to go to a party. She wants to wear these white pants, but she got two choices. Put pantyhose on and you see the hosiery underneath the bottom of the leg, or wear nothing and you see the panty line. And so in the heat of the moment or whatever, she cut the foot out of the pantyhose, and she said, I knew what I had. And for 2 years, she kept working the door to door selling fax machines, and she worked at night working on her idea with only $5,000. And she went to get help with filing a patent. And I think they said, well, you need like $10,000. She's like, I got $5,000 for this whole idea. And so she actually went and bought every book on patents out of Barnes and Noble, and sat down and read and wrote her own patents. And then went back to one of the attorneys that she went to ask him to just do the legalese, because the language has to be proper in order for the filing to go through. And he told her, he said, when you came, I actually thought I was being punked. Like, your idea was so crazy. I didn't think that it was a real idea. And so she said, well, why did you take my call? And he said, because I happened to run your idea past my daughters. And they said, Dad, that sounds like a pretty good idea. You might want to help her out. And so he does that. So she gets the patent, she gets the patent, she gets her prototypes, and she gets on the phone and starts calling Neiman Marcus. And she gets the woman on the phone, and she knows sales, and she's like, I know I got to get in front of her. Can I have a few minutes of your time? She goes down to Dallas to meet with the woman, and she's like, I can see in the meeting that I'm losing her. And so she stops the meeting and she says, will you come to the bathroom with me? The woman's like, what? She's like, just come to the bathroom with me. And so she goes to the bathroom. She walks in the stall. She said, I'm going to show you what the product does. And she said that she came out, she showed her without Spanx what the pants look like, showing her the underwear panty lines. And then she goes in, puts the product on, comes back out, and the woman says, I get it. I'm carrying it. I'm putting it in 7 stores. And it is a lot more to her story. But as I listen to stories like that, for me, they collapse the distance between where I believe God is calling me and where I am today. And so those stories are empowering. And I study everybody. I'm a fan of excellence. My latest obsession right now is The Last Dance. I don't know if anybody saw The Last Dance on ESPN with Michael Jordan. You got to watch it. It's delightful. It's everything. It's everything you wanted. Quintina said, this has been a whole aha for me. What do you mean, Quintina? What's been a whole aha? And Zandra, were you going to say anything?
Since,
go ahead.
This is Quintina. Since the beginning of the year, I have been looking at not being where I know I should be. Mm-hmm. And it was difficult before everything started shutting down for me to even go into work. Mm-hmm. And in looking at it, I took the position because I didn't really value who I was at that time. And I've outgrown it because I know you know that I had been, the last time you and I were in contact, I was in grad school. Well, now I'm done. And what I have my master's in does not translate to where I'm at. So it's been one of these times where I'm looking really, really hard as to where I'm supposed to be. I know it's not going back to where I was before all of this happened. So this has really been an aha to understand, to value my worth and not short sell myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Zandra?
No, I just wanted to clarify. I fixed it. I was thinking when you said Michael Jordan Last Dance, I was like, he's dancing. But no, when you said ESPN, I was like, oh, okay, it's about his last feet in basketball and stuff. So that's, I was like, huh?
It's everything. It's
he has a very phenomenal story. Michael Jordan, even just kind of taking him all the way back before he even got to North Carolina and just kind of watching him grow. It's a very phenomenal story of how he evolved.
Absolutely. So yeah, I like, for me though, when I read those stories help close the distance between where I sit today and where I want to be. And it humanizes people who have achieved great things. And it reminds me that if I concentrate, that I too can do that. And I there's an interview with do you guys know who Jewel is? There's an interview with Jewel that that I listened to last night that's phenomenal, like amazing. And
She's Jewel from, what's their connection to?
She is a musical artist.
Musical artist.
She's a folk artist. And she another phenomenal story. Homeless for a year.
Jewel, J-E-W.
Say it again.
Jewel.
Yeah, Jewel. Jewel.
Thank you. And
phenomenal story. This young lady. And but one of the things that she talked about was she was making a distinction between perfectionism and perfection. And so perfection rests at the center of your being, but perfectionism can start out serving as a rocket fuel and it'll get you so far. But the problem with perfectionism is that it's careful and it's calculated and it doesn't want to be ashamed and it doesn't want to be embarrassed. And the thing about making that leap into like the stratosphere, like where you're just in that zone, you know, that the Larry Bird, when he talked about Michael Jordan in the playoffs, that second game in the playoffs. Now they ultimately lost the series, but he was young. He said that wasn't Michael Jordan, that was God in disguise. And but there is this place in consciousness where you transcend yourself and what's possible for you. And perfectionism can get you so far because it is rocket fuel. But to get to that place where it's like, no, that's not Zandra, that's God in disguise. Or that's not James, that's God in disguise. To get to that place, it's like you have to you have to surrender, because you have to take a risk that's so big that perfectionism will never let you go there. And so those are, just to get back to your question, Malala, that like those stories fuel me, and they help me close the distance, and they awaken imagination for me when I start to hear like different things that people try, because there are things that I've heard about, Michael Jordan or Kobe or Jewel or Oprah or Beyonce or whomever. I study everybody that I started looking for how I can do that in this arena. I'm clear that this is my lane, but how do I then take that in this lane right here? Cool. All right. So the question is, this is honest assessment for next week. Y'all might not decide to share, but that's okay. I'll share something. Honest assessment is, what have you bargained for life for? Where have you not awakened imagination, and it's time for Joseph to come on out the belly? Cool. Thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you guys. And I will see you next week. We'll be with the same passage next week, but we'll go the next pieces of the passage.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.